Welcome back to my channel as we continue on with a clarinet refurbishment here. Today's episode is about oiling the clarinet body. I've already removed the keywork because that would be in a different episode, and I forgot to record it when I removed the keywork. But anyways, this is like the barrel and bell, and it doesn't require any specialized tools, but you do have to be aware of a few things. But don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, like, and share afterwards as we get along now to oiling the body. Now, first of all, if you plan on having the clarinet sit for a while, you may want to use a synthetic oil. There's plenty of synthetic oils out there. You know, Selmer makes synthetic oils. You know, you get micro brand synthetic oils. There's a variety of synthetic oils out there you can get at your regular music store or online. And I'll show you what happens if you use natural oils and you just let the instrument sit in the case for a long time. This barrel has, you can see a lot of green on it. And that is from sitting in a case for a long time after being oiled, both top and bottom. So if you plan on having a clarinet sit for a while in a case and being unplayed, use a synthetic oil. Like I said, there's many varieties out there. Anyone really do. You have to remember what the use of oil is for, whether natural or synthetic. It's to displace water and prevent water from getting into the wood. So here we go. Of course, first, one thing we have to remember is I'm leaving the corks on this one. I'll be removing it a little bit later. But if you do remove the corks, you have to remember not to oil the surface of these tenons, because any oil in there is it may prevent the adhesive to basically adhere the cork to the tenon, and we don't want that. So I'm leaving the corks on right now, and I'll be taking them off later, but they can be taken off anytime as long as you don't oil the tenon surface where the corks go. But what we're going to do first is start with the tone holes, and basically we're going to try to get the undercut of the tone holes. Now, this clarinet doesn't actually have any undercuts. It's more of a student level clarinet. But if you watch my One Buffet R13 video about tone holes, you can see how dry the undercut gets versus the bore and the body. I went in there with a bore scope, and the undercuts were really dry compared to the rest of the clarinet. So we have to make sure we get that if we have any undercut in the tone holes. This is actually rag material. It's for another episode. We're going to use the same method we used for the barrel and the bell for the tone holes. I'm just going to use a Q-tip. And I'm using natural almond oil. We can use synthetic if we want. I'm going to switch cameras right now. So this is going to be very easy. Make sure when you hold this, be careful of the springs. You don't want to poke yourself. You'll bleed with metal, which isn't good. We're just getting the tone holes right now. Going to stick this in there, move it around in a circle as I'm spinning the Q-tip. And getting the rest of the tone hole chimney as you come up, you can see some discoloration in the Q-tip already. Adding more oil when needed. Getting the undercut if one exists there by rolling around and working the Q-tip. And spinning the Q-tip, always spinning the Q-tip. Get these ones down here. Oh, you can see the Q-tip is elongating. It's starting to break apart. We'll use the other half in a bit, or just use another Q-tip. Throw that aside, grab another Q-tip. Q-tips are cheap. Easy to replace. Once again, be careful of the springs. Don't poke yourself. Now, this is a student clarinet, so these are basically round springs. They're not pointy. But when you get to professional level and intermediate, they may have blue steel springs or really stainless steel needle springs, and those will go right into your skin like there's no tomorrow, and it gets painful. Rotating around once again. This. Done with the tone holes. Before you oil the body, you want to clean off the body a bit. This one is a little bit dirty. You can use a plastic brush if you want, if you have one. For instance, plastic brush, an old toothbrush works really good. Help break off what you see there. You'll find out once you get the oil on, the oil will help clean everything too. This is just break things up a bit. Be careful around the springs. You don't want to grab them and pull them and break them. And always try to clean with the direction of the springs if you want. Clean around the tone holes. Then we can use, I'm just going to use one of these from this that I showed earlier. I'm not going to use the cotton balls because the cotton balls are just too fluffy. But these cotton pads seem really good. Very easy to get it on. Once again, be careful of the springs and your fingers. If you want, use the Q-tip around the springs. Careful of the spring. It's going one way, so move that way. Body is cleaning up nicely. A little bit dirt on here. Go back to a Q-tip. Get around the springs. Around the tone holes. And that looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is get inside the bore. Now there's multiple ways of doing this. We can use a pad like this and cut it up if you want, make it smaller. The main key here is, remember, if you have the register pip and the tone hole, thumb hole in here, you want to make sure anything you push down the board does not get stuck by that. You can use an old swab if you have one with a little bit of oil on it, whether that or a cotton one. You can use a smaller swab like this and cut it up. Push it down with a really thin screwdriver if you want. Be careful not to scratch the inside of the bore. Depending if it fits, you can do it this way too. Now I remove the register pip and the thumb hole in this, so I can do it that way. You can push pad down using any type of brush. There's long brushes you can use to push down a pad. You've probably seen these. And there's also the shove-its. If you have an old shove-it, which is a fuzzy thing like this, you put in the clarinet to keep it dry, which I don't recommend. You can actually use one of those too. There's multiple ways of doing this. We're going to try using a pad. And I'm actually going to cut it up and make it a little bit smaller. Bingo. I'm going to dip that in here. Insert it here. Now, remember, we have to be careful if we have the register pip on here, it'll probably get stuck on there. I'm just going to kind of push it down. And the thumb hole rests there. Push it all the way down. And if you take this and look up the bore with a light source behind you and see how much you got in there or not. Maybe we'll wet it again. Do it again. Remember, I always start from the top because the further up the clarinet you go, the more affected it gets by your breath and your water vapor, because the lower body probably isn't affected very much. Remember, over time, the body will absorb the oil and distribute it more evenly. Bingo. I'm going to look up the bore now. It really looks nicely oiled now, just from doing that. You do it a third time. Basically getting some oil. Popping on the top of the bore. Pushing it down. Slowly. Oops. Make sure I push down the middle, not down the side. Slowly, 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 slowly. Bingo. Take a look at the bore. It's really shiny now with the oil. Didn't really take much. So we got the tone holes, we got the undercut if there was some, we got the surface, and we got the bore. Really quite easy with a really simple method. Now we're going to do the bottom. You can actually look up the bore first. It's actually not too bad. We're going to do the tone holes first. I already know there's no undercuts, but I'm working it as if I think there are some. Be careful of the springs, of course. Now, normally I take a bristle brush like I showed you, and I clean these off first. There we go. I should use this or some of this. Grab another cotton pad. Do the body. Careful not to poke yourself. Switch to a Q-tip. We're going to wipe off the extra tomorrow, so don't worry about it too much. Back to here. Use the same thing, gonna push it down the bore. Just kind of slowly tapping it down. Slowly tapping it down. Bingo. I'm going to look up the bore into a light source, and it looks pretty good to me. And there we go. We're done. We're going to let this sit now for 24 hours. We're going to take a look at it tomorrow and see what it looks like, see what's absorbed and what's not. And we're going to get to tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to get to oiling the surface of the body again. And we're going to clean these posts, make them all nice and shiny through a process called ragging. Which I'll review more tomorrow, but ragging is using, for instance, this, which there's an alternative to this. This is essentially very similar if you're only going to do one, maybe two clarinets versus 100, and there's thinner and thicker ones of these. Just going to like Walmart and buying white shoelaces with a tough texture. This is basically what this is, except a little bit tougher, and we'll be using this and the metal polish we used before for the bell rings and barrel rings. Same thing, and we'll be doing it on here. We of course have to be careful about springs, and we have to somehow hold it, which would be the biggest concern with the home usage here. I normally put this up on the wood lathe, but my camera is over here, so I'm going to fix it using some other tools I have here. So we have it underneath the camera. But remember, we're adding the oil because the most damage to a clarinet occurs when the player's airstream near the upper portion, really, of the upper joint in the barrel. The lower joint was actually relatively clean. The board looked pretty good compared to the upper joint in the barrel that we did before. Also, when the player plays, your water vapor collects and it may drip down through the clarinet and create kind of a river and a dry streak down the middle bottom of the board, the lower joint. So you want to check that too. Make sure that you do get that part of the clarinet body. Make sure that's oiled very well. But it's really easy to oil. This is the first time. It may take 2 or 3 times of oiling like this for it to absorb really well and displace any water, or to prevent any water from being absorbed later on. So we'll be back tomorrow in about 24 hours. So stay tuned for that coming episode. We want to thank you for listening today. Any questions or comments, please post them down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. You gotta love knowledge, gotta love life, gotta love clarinets. So we'll see you next time.